it's Nzinga of Yes Baby I Like It Raw. I am the recipe creator for Vegan What's Dope Meal Planners. I'm super excited to share with you a recipe that I learned from my grandmother. My aunt is going to be my assistant today. So I kind of have some things set up and we're going to talk about it. We're going to be making Haitian plantain porridge, which is a traditional Haitian breakfast. And I'm also going to show you how to make coconut milk from scratch. Okay, so to make plantain porridge, if you could come on down so everyone can see, we need green plantain, not ripe plantain. We need to also have cinnamon, nutmeg, which usually looks like this. We've already grated it up for the recipe. Star anise, which looks like this. In the traditional recipe, they usually call for butter, but instead I am switching it out with coconut oil. And then the secret weapon for Haitian sweet dishes, so we like to use almond extract. We call it essence, and a little bit of salt. And then, of course, a milk. And so today I'm going to be making coconut milk to go in there. So first, when we start, what we do is we place water in a saucepan and we kind of make like a tea with the cinnamon and star anise. So if you can come a little closer so everyone can see. So you let that boil a bit. And then what we do next essentially is we take this green plantain and we chop it up and we put it in some water. And we leave some of the skin in. What's key to the green plantain is that you remove any dark spots. I'm going to let my aunt show how you're going to cut that up. So we're going to come over here and she's going to cut up some green plantain for us. And we're going to put the trash in here. So if you notice this area has like really dark spots, you want to get rid of that. So you're not getting rid of all the skin. And in Haitian culture, we like to say that you get a lot of the vitamins from the skin. And so essentially you then would cut up in four. Sometimes you cut it up finer and then you would put it in water so it doesn't brown so much. Hi, everyone who's watching. So normally I just use one plantain, but I'm actually making plantain porridge for my mom, my cousins who are here as well. So I'm doubling this recipe a bit. So then here we go. And then from here, we would then take this and place it in a blender. And you'd use the same water that you had it soaking in into the blender. And then I normally would add a bit more water so that it's covered. So then we're here. So you just want to make sure that you have enough water that when you blend it out, it'll be smooth. If you have a Vitamix, you want to start with the blender on low. If you have a normal blender, you just turn it on and then you basically blend it out. And then once it's smooth, you would stop the blender. So this is essentially what you want it to look like in terms of a consistency. From here, you want to make sure you have essentially a rolling boil with the water that you've let come to a boil with, again, the cinnamon and the star anise. And then you would pour this in to the saucepan. So my aunt is going to kind of assist me here while I pour it in. So what's really important here, this is one of the main things my grandma emphasized when we were doing it, is once you place it in here, you want to be constantly stirring the plantain so it doesn't get lumpy. So you want to stir, 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 stir until it thickens, and then you can stop with the stirring. But if you don't stir at the top of this recipe, once you put it into the water that's doing the rolling boil, your consistency won't be as smooth, it'll be a bit lumpy. So here we go. You can get in closer so they can see. And we're going to just basically cook this down until it gets thick. And I'm going to add a little water in here so we can get, so I had a little bit left over, so I'm just going to add a little of water so I can get that down in there. So a lot of times there's like a science to cooking in Haitian culture. So when my grandmother was teaching me this recipe, she was like, if you have your period, you shouldn't make this recipe because your chemistry is going to affect the recipe, which means that instead of being this nice creamy, it won't be as creamy as it will. You actually turn it into water. So this is one of those recipes I kind of stay true to what she said. So normally if I was on my menstrual cycle, this is not one of those recipes I make. Another thing she told me is once you serve it, you don't want to put a spoon into the bowl until you're ready to eat, because then once you put the spoon in, the ingredients reacts to the spoon and it also turns liquid. If you just leave it in, it'll start to turn water as well. So my aunt is here, mixing it up. And then what I'm going to do next for you is I'm going to make some coconut milk. So normally what we would do to make the coconut milk, my old-fashioned way of breaking coconuts, and sometimes my grandma's break the coconut up, is to just throw it on and poof, there it is. So I got this fancy tool, the coconut jack, and that's how I'm going to make my coconut water today. So essentially what you're going to do is I'm going to hit it around and around and around until the coconut breaks. So here we go. So this is a dry coconut. This is not like the Thai coconut, and the dry coconut is what we like to use in Haiti to make coconut milk. So what you might not be noticing is I'm moving the coconut around as I'm cooking it. So I'm going to have my cousin work on this while I talk a bit more about this recipe. Come on down. It's a family affair today. So if you notice here, this has gotten super thick than it was before. So we need to get that coconut milk in there. And usually I like to add my butter in at this time. And then there goes my professional coconut breaker. She just busts that open. And then we go. Okay, and what we have to do now is So because it's a brown dried coconut, the coconut meat is not as soft as you would normally find with the Thai coconut. So if you notice, the coconut meat is thicker and it's not as soft. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a butter knife, and my aunt's just going to keep breaking it down. So usually from here, then I go in here and I pluck it out. So if you notice, we're here, and what I'm going to do then is start setting up for my coconut milk. So I take this, sometimes I leave the brown in there, most of the times we do, and we just take out little chunks that's staying on the floor, and we kind of just put it in there. Nice piece. Once you get that first piece out, it's pretty easy to get all of the rest of it out. So usually if you use the coconut jack, it's just going to break in half. And then from there, if you want to make your life easy, you're going to want to break it down a bit more so that you get these nice little pieces that you can then take your butter knife and remove it. Evelyn, can you add some more water to my cup? And this is really yummy, by the way. Like growing up, whenever we were making coconut milk, I would love to eat this. It's nice and crunchy. Now there's two ways to make coconut milk. This is the fast, sophisticated way. The way I was originally taught was we would take this grater and grate each one of these pieces down in a container. Then we would take hot water and put it on top of the grated coconut milk and strain it from there, and then we would have coconut milk. So there's a way to make coconut milk without technology. But today we have less time, so I'm not going to do the labor-intensive part of making coconut milk. So from here, I just add enough water to cover it, maybe a little bit more. And then I blend it out. So because we use the dried coconut, it's important that we strain this. So what then I do is I take this out. And essentially you can use like a milk, a nut milk cloth, or usually we just use a strainer and we kind of go from there. And then you can get close in so that they can see everything that's going on. And then I move this around. Once I get as much milk as I can from here, then normally I would blend this over again so I could get more milk. And this becomes much more cost efficient than actually buying coconut milk in the can because you get way more bang for your buck. So like retail at the grocery store, a dry coconut will cost you maybe $2.50. And that's the average cost of a can. And I haven't even used all of my dried coconut. I still have stuff left over, right? And look at how much coconut milk I have in here. And I still can get some coconut milk out of here. And then from there, we're going to pour it into my container, in my saucepan, I should say. So in the original recipe, it usually calls for condensed milk. It usually calls for condensed milk. So I sometimes make this recipe with a vegan condensed milk, but the coconut milk is just as good. And then we kind of just pour it in there. If you can come in so they can see. Not besoin plus? Yeah? So because I'm doubling this up, I'm going to make a bit more coconut milk. So essentially I'm going to take that same meat, or what some people would call, in Haiti we'd say trash. And I'm just going to add some more water to this and make some more. Can you give me some more water? Awesome. Now, in terms of measurements, you'll get all the measurements for this recipe in the dope meal planner. And this was in the recipes I shared this month. So I'm adding some more water to that. And I'm just going to blend this right out. So I took the same stuff that was left over from the coconut meat and I placed it back in the blender, and we're just going to blend it again. So then from here, we're back at it again. And another reason why I like to make fresh coconut milk is because it doesn't have all the additives and preservatives like the other coconut milk that you buy that usually has guar gum and other things like that. So that helps you step away from there and keep everything pure. And then with canned food, you get the aluminum seepage. And if you notice now, it's not as thick as it was before when it was just the plantain and the boiled water. And I'm going to just add some more. Okay, I'm just going to add all of that in there. So I lowered the temperature because I'm making sure you see everything. So I'm going to put the heat back a little bit higher so that we can clear this up. And I need to wipe this down a little bit. I just had a little spin. The blue one. How's everybody doing today? What are the people saying? Is anyone saying anything?
Vegan What said so nice that you have family helping. Stacy said hi.
Hi.
Aldine said yes, and she also mentioned how she loved making the porridge with her family.
Awesome. Okay, so then we're going to add the coconut oil. And we're also going to add some lime zest to this. So if you notice here, my aunt is going to come on closer so you can see what my aunt's doing. We're getting the lime zest, and we're going to add the lime zest into the dish, which is optional. So a lot of times with like traditional recipes, there isn't a measurement involved. It's a taste and see and go. So I had to really work on this recipe to make sure I could give you the right measurements, because the way I was taught, it was like, this is what you do, and this is what you do, and this is what you do, and this is what you do. And then we're going to add that in there. We're also going to add our almond extract. So now I'm adding the almond extract in there. And then it's time to sweeten. There's a couple of ways that I like to sweeten my dishes. It depends on where I'm at today. So for instance, I sometimes use agave to the recipe, but today I decided to use my coconut sugar, which comes from coconut sap. So again, that whole iron thing, you add enough sugar to your taste. If you have something like diabetes, you want to go towards the agave as your sweetener because it doesn't impact you in terms of like your insulin levels. But if you don't have those types of medical conditions in terms of fluctuations with your insulin, you can use brown sugar or maple syrup and stuff like that. So I'm going to add some, and then we're going to mix that in. Again, if you want exact measurements, I have exact measurements for this recipe on the dope meal planner. And I'm definitely going to have to add some more. I think that's enough. And so the trick with sugar or sweet dishes is you always add a little salt. And what salt does is it makes the sugar more pronounced. So I'm going to add a little salt in here. And I'm using Himalayan pink salt. Okay. And so then you cook this down a little bit longer. So now you know we have like a really amazing, creamy, and I sometimes also like to add a little vanilla to this. So I'm going to add a little vanilla extract. And what we did was we grated down the nutmeg. We like to use fresh nutmeg because the taste is so much more pronounced when you grate it freshly. So this is what a nutmeg looks like before it's grated down. And then we just basically took our grater, and the side of the grater that we use when we want to get this consistency is this side of the grater. And we're going to add that in there. We're going to do a quick taste to see how it tastes. So again, once you add the sugar, you want to kind of taste to see how it is, to see if it's to your liking. Some people want it extra sweet, some people don't. My grandmother leaned on the don't put too much sugar side of things. And I think it could use a little bit more sugar. You want to taste? It tastes really it's really strong on the coconut side. So I'm going to have my aunt give her second opinion. I think it needs a little bit more sugar because they're anxiously waiting. So we're going to add a little bit more sugar. This is definitely not a recipe that I would say to eat every morning because of the amount of sugar that we add to it. But this is was one of my favorite breakfasts because growing up in the household that I was in, we used to have to eat Raisin Bran and yucky stuff like this, like that. Or shredded wheat without the sugar. So whenever my grandma would make labouille bana, I was like, yes! Or when I was sick, I would always make a request for labouille bana. When I had my wisdom teeth taken out and I only could eat liquidy stuff, that was one of my requests. I'm speaking Creole if you're wondering what language I'm speaking. So this recipe is based on a traditional Haitian recipe. And I would say that if you have people who have different tolerance for sugar or like their palate varies with sugar, I would leave it at a place where then if somebody wanted some more sweetener, they would add it themselves. And we're just going to put the volume up just a little bit, and we're going to let this cook down for about another 5 to 10 minutes. Any questions?
Renee said yummy.
It's so yummy. There. And again, with the stirring, once you've got it all mixed up and smooth after you add the plantain mixture into the rolling boil, you don't have to stir as much. You just want to go back and forth and just make sure that it doesn't start to burn at the bottom. But if you have it on medium heat, you're pretty good. And I'm multitasking. I'm making breakfast for us and lunch, which is why we have all this other stuff going on. And this can be also something that we eat for supper. I like it for a dessert. I just really like this recipe, which is why I thought it'd be a good recipe to share. I'm gonna put this here. I'm gonna grab a bowl.
Vegan What asks, how long have you been vegan?
I've been vegan for 17 years. I went vegan in 2001 because of health conditions. I have a benign brain tumor on my pituitary gland. I have an autoimmune disorder called scleroderma, and I also have polycystic ovary syndrome. And essentially, at the time that I went vegan, I was kind of told I needed to be on medication for the rest of my life. And I felt like there had to be a better way. I was kind of sick of I had a rotation of 5 physicians and specialists that I saw and was on lots of medication. And so I decided to just do a lifestyle overhaul, and I went vegan, plant-based at that time, and kind of just went natural with everything. Soaps, lotions, and things like that. Any other questions?
No. Renee did say it brings back childhood memories.
Yay, Renee! Ça passe! And then I'm gonna find, so you can look at that a little bit while I find mine. And then essentially from here, you just serve it in a bowl. And it's nice and thick. I'm gonna wipe off the side. There's a napkin. Can you grab a napkin for me? I'll do it. Where's this one? Oh. Free. And I'm just going to clean off the side a little bit so you can have a pretty presentation. This is where my grandma's good at stuff. She would have poured it and I wouldn't have had anything on the side. And then we have our plantain porridge. Sometimes I like to sprinkle some cinnamon on top. And this is our recipe. In Creole, we call this la bouillie bonne. Any questions? So thank you for sharing some time with my family. This is my aunt, Mailis, and my cousins are hiding. So again, my name is Nzinga from Yes, Baby, I Like It Raw. Thanks for sharing. Wait, there's a question.
Yes. Vegan West said, what would you suggest to people who are holding on to meat and dairy because of culture reasons?
I would say that find a way, that's a great question, find a way to veganize everything. One of the things that I've been actively working on is veganizing traditional Haitian recipes, because I do have, they have a fond place in my life. And there's so much more out there than when I went vegan that it's much easier to substitute things out. So for instance, we make this dish called legume, which is like a vegetable stew, and it usually would have like beef cubes in it. And Gardein has a beef tib that I've been able to substitute out in there, and just have fun. Like play around with it. A lot of times I think we feel like the recipes, in order for them to be authentic and taste the same, that they need to have meat in them. But a lot of those recipes, what makes them taste so good is actually the spices that we add to the recipe. And my family's been really good at veganizing stuff for me. So when I didn't know how to veganize things, they veganized them for me, and it tastes just as good. So again, I'm Nzinga. I'm so excited to be the October recipe creator for Dope Meal Planner. We made plantain porridge, bla bouillie bonan today, and I have some amazing recipes that I shared this month. Thank you.